Father Peeper said, I live and teach on the campus of St. John's University in Queens, New York. And just on Friday, the Solemnity of All Saints, myself and one of the visiting priests were moving from Mary House over to celebrate the 12:15 Mass at St. Thomas More Church, directly across from the priest house. And as we were approaching the church, we saw people dressed up in costumes. And the priest with whom I was with said to me, "Don't these people know it's inappropriate to wear their Halloween costumes, especially the day after?" I clarified and I said to him, "No. Campus ministry here at St. John's University has invited the students to come dressed as their favorite saints." And it's amazing because, as little kids, we would have jumped at that chance. As parents, you would have dressed your kids up in the finest of clothes. We didn't know how this would pan out. There had to be about 80 to 100 kids dressed up. And each of them had a unique saint on. It was quite striking what struck us when we walked over. Perhaps the two most astounding ones was the woman dressed as Joan of Arc. She must have gone to one of these party stores and bought this body armor and had this huge sword. And then this one clever fellow who had arrows sticking out of all parts of his body at St. Sebastian. So they were all gathered outside the church. They opened the doors, the music began. And campus ministry had asked the saints to come in the historical order in which they lived. And so the music began. Oh, when the saints, oh, when the saints, oh, when the saints come marching in. And it was a beautiful event. And as people looked, there was a slight woman at the end of the procession, separated from all else. And people wanted to know, what is her story? She seemed too keen on being simple in her dress and not as elaborate as some of the others. And so people were quick to point out, that's Mary, the Queen of all saints. Mary, the Queen of all saints. When we think of Mary, Queen of all saints, we think of the definition that Blessed Teresa of Calcutta gave us about sainthood. Saints are ordinary people who do extraordinary things. And when we review Mary's life, there are two stations, it seems to me, that point out the extraordinary things that she did. One is the familiar feast at Cana. What a horrible situation to be at a wedding reception and to run out of refreshments. It's embarrassment. What do you do? But what's striking about Mary is that she knew exactly what to do. She knew that Jesus could be trusted. She knew that Jesus would not leave people hanging, and she knew that Jesus would be present to this couple and not let this celebration go sour. She had a confident trust, incredible confidence that God would make good. Election day is upon us. And I don't know about down here in Philadelphia, but my family is Irish Catholic. And so we all sit at the TV and we talk to the TV. And so our experience is talking to these politicians as they're going through the debates. And I was with one of my relatives recently, and someone said, you can't trust any of them. And then my aunt chimes in, the wisdom figure in the family, and says, and that's why I'm not Republican. That's why I'm not Democrat. That's why I'm not independent or conservative, a Green Party or Workers' Party. That's why I always vote for the individual who I believe I can trust, that I believe will make good on their promises. My friends, we come Monday after Monday because we have great confidence in Our Lady. We have great trust in our God, because this is the God who's been with us and not abandoned us, has always made good on their promises. Beginning of this novena every day, we hear over and over again how Mary has answered our prayers, taken those to Jesus, and let Jesus hear our concerns. Our God can be trusted, and Mary can be trusted as the Queen of all saints. The second station in Mary's life is at the end of Jesus' life, where we see everyone gone. All the people that were there when things were going great. Oh, the parties, the engagements, the fun, the excitement of following this teacher who was saying some insightful things, only to die a criminal on the cross. But Mary is that ordinary woman who did the extraordinary thing of sticking around in good times and in bad. My friends, I think if you were to examine your lives, you would question yourself where you get the energy sometimes to be present to people in need. You wonder how you get on that bus to go and to visit that person who's suffering constantly, to look at the phone and see the caller ID of that person who is a difficult person, but you pick up that phone to respond to an email who's someone who's suffering. And you do that because we have an example in the life of Mary. Mary, who is there both in good times and in bad, who is not afraid to celebrate and to suffer. In the end, it's about Mary's trust and Mary's sustainability in the midst of difficulty, that we claim her as the Queen of all saints. Pius XII, as you well know, gave her this title on October 11th in 1954. And appropriately in this month of November, the month of all saints and all souls, we pause to reflect on her role as Queen of all saints. There's an author that once wrote, "A saint is someone who dreams with their eyes wide open. They're attentive to the needs of the poor, they're mindful of those who are suffering, they're always present to those they're in relationship with." If we look at the stations in Mary's life, we see how that is a reality. And we wonder how she did it. But we forget that she never lost sight of that connection. As she was close to Jesus and Jesus was close to her in her womb, she found herself ever present to the source of energy, the source of life, the source of hope and promise. My friends, as we gather around this Eucharistic table and are nourished by this food, let us take into our bodies that same food. We may not go out of this church dressed any differently as our favorite saint, but perhaps we'll go out even more committed than ever before to be ordinary people who do extraordinary things and dream with their eyes wide open.